Hello, today let's discuss a subsection of a section which is reading comprehension. If you just about consider CAT, out of the 30 questions that are of the verbal plus reasoning section, you will find 9 of the questions are of RCs, which is reading comprehension. Approximately 3 RCs with again approximately 3 to 4 questions per RC are asked in CAT. So what are these reading comprehensions? During our school, we've seen a huge little paragraph, sometimes huge, sometimes little, followed by 4 to 5 questions. Now these questions are directly from the paragraphs. We have to first of all understand the author, find out what are the options given, try coming out to the best option that is possible amongst the options. That is how you try answering the questions of a reading comprehension. Today, we'll slightly restrict our discussion only to the types of RCs that are asked in the reading comprehension section. The first one are data-driven passages. These passages, more often than not, are full of facts and figures. They can be read relatively superficially, especially if the questions tend to be very specific to facts and figures. They are unambiguous and fairly easy to read. While answering the questions, one can unusually identify the questioned areas very easily because every question would have some data. That data can be easily referenced out of the passage. The other kind of passages are descriptive passages. Here though, there's a very thin line between these kind of passages and data-driven passages. Data-driven passages had a lot of data, whereas this one is more of a description of a situation, a case study, or probably description of a place, a scientific phenomenon, or an economic situation. All these passages are far more comfortable to read, but they do demand a little more understanding in comparison to the data-driven passages. The third type of passages can be broadly called as miscellaneous, but they do encompass analytical, abstract, or abstruse passages. These kind of passages generally could be analysis of a subject or a theory, sometimes specific to scientific, political, or philosophical, or even a comparison between two situations or theories. They usually follow a certain pattern. A bird's eye view would give you a good idea of the pattern. They start off with stating the issue being discussed, and then they go on to critically analyze by talking about the pros and cons or to's and against the particular topic. Some of them might draw out differences between two theories and analyze their individual contributions to the relevant body of knowledge as a whole. In these passages, you need to look out for key statements that sum up the nature of the issue or the argument. Sometimes to as well as for both sides of the argument needs to be figured out so that we reach out to a conclusion. Some of these passages are easy to relate to because they do talk about alternative writings, probably fantasy, philosophy, or even theology. Passages about religion, philosophical principles, and alternative socio-political writings are examples of such passages. These are fairly difficult to get used to since the style of writing is not familiar to everybody. These passages are usually dense with ideas, and hence, even if they are short, they take longer to read and assimilate. You have to keep in mind that an abstract passage is not always considered abstract purely on the basis of the subject matter. The style of writing and the thoughts expressed are also the parameters by which a passage could be pegged as abstract or abstruse. On the face of it, the subject matter seems abstract and difficult to comprehend. This is mainly because of two reasons. Firstly, the ideas expressed in factual passages tend to deal with real life or current situations, whereas the ideas in abstract passages are multidimensional. They are sometimes opinions, sometimes belief, and could be understood in a black and white manner. Students find it harder to relate since the questions in these cases tend to be inferential or indirect, which calls for an in-depth understanding of a given small passage. Secondly, not many students in a general way read abstruse material unless they are specifically interested, whereas factual and analytical passages are read widely in order to gain knowledge about current happenings. Over and all, if we talk about these three, one question that comes to the mind is, why does reading comprehension become so difficult? Firstly, it is to do with reading speed and the habit for reading. Whatever said and done, we would at least need to sit on 300 plus words per minute, and that calls for a lot of practice. Secondly, the selection given may be too dense for speed reading. Just depends on the intensity of the passage. Thirdly, the questions test depth of understanding in RC, whereas speed reading emphasizes coverage at the expense of understanding. RC passages can literally be drawn from virtually any subject. Could just include social sciences, say history, sociology, economics, archaeology, etc. Physical sciences, for example, physics, chemistry, geology. Humanities, for example, art, literary criticism, topical issues, analysis, etc. And the worst part is that this list does not exhaust the possibilities. Since authors can write about any topic whatsoever, a reading comprehension selection can be about anything. Obviously, a reading selection about an unfamiliar topic is more difficult to read than about topics you know something about. To put things into perspective, the people who set the tests don't select obscure reading selections simply to make the reading more difficult. Rather, they select passages to make sure the questions test reading comprehension rather than knowledge of a subject. The theory is that if a reading comprehension is about, say, obscure medieval composer by the name X, Y, and Z, thankfully nobody will be able to answer those questions based on memory. This finishes the orientation towards the types of RCs that are seen in CAT. Please explore or keep exploring more so that you grow and this particular portion fetches a lot to you. Happy reading to all of you.